Welcome back to PYP Boxing. On this episode, Boots Ennis hits the jackpot in Atlantic City. Raymond Ford gets a tough test at 130. And Giyasov keeps his place in line for a belt at 147. Let's get into it, folks. Deron Boots Ennis unified the WBA and IBF welterweight titles with a stoppage victory over Marttice Stanionis. This one surprised me. I expected Stanionis to give Boots a lot of problems. Was thinking it would at least be a distance fight. And the way Boots looked at the weigh-in, I figured Stanionis was going to take the fight in the later rounds. It was not to be, as Stanionis wilted under Boots Ennis's attack. Mark, tell us what you thought of Boots' performance on Saturday.
He surprised me. I kept remembering his last two performances. They didn't look good. He didn't look good. He got the wins, but I thought this was going to be a more difficult test for him, to be honest with you. I thought Stanionis was going to win. I told you Stanionis is going to take it. I thought he was going to take the later rounds and be a lot more dominant. I even thought he was going to be stronger. But, David, it was really surprising seeing those two bodies in there that night. I saw a light heavyweight against a small welterweight. I totally underestimated the size, the power, the strength. And then Boots came in ready like he was fighting the fight of his life, which he was. He showed up for his little Super Bowl at this point of his career, and he took it. He was sharp. I don't think Stanionis won any rounds, maybe one. I think he won one of the one before he got knocked out. But it's not for not trying. He's not a bad fighter. He does everything well that he does do. He's a come-forward fighter. He was the same thing this night. Doesn't really use the jab for anything else, just to get in there and throw his hooks and his rights. But I thought that was going to be enough for Boots with the last performances that he had, right? But Boots showed me he's much, much better than what we saw. When he is on, he is the best guy at 147. I'm excited to see what's next for him, David. Too bad for Stanionis, but it didn't turn out well for him. But it's not because he's a bad fighter. Boots is just that good.
You know, Mark, I was impressed with Boots' performance as well, but I'm still not sold or convinced. I think he is that fighter that we saw in the last few fights. I think that's still him. I think the one thing that does work in his favor, though, is with that IBF rule. One of the reasons why I think Boots started to look sluggish the last few fights is because he had to fight under the IBF rule where he can't rehydrate over 10 pounds the next day. They cancel that rule when it's for a unification fight. And this was a unification fight. So Boots could rehydrate to his full potential as he wanted. So he could get to a comfortable weight. That's why he looked a little better in there. And he admitted as much after the fight. What I thought was going to be more interesting was the clash of styles. You know, Boots does well with fighters that pressure him. At least you would think he would do. But he's actually better coming forward. Stanionis is a pressure fighter. He throws a lot of punches. He has really good stamina, but he's a very linear fighter. He comes straight at you, and he's very predictable with his attack as well. So Boots controlled this fight from the first round. He never stayed in one spot too long and didn't allow Stanionis to get set. Actually, Stanionis never even really got close to him without getting punched. Even though he was catching a lot of those punches, there were some good shots slipping through. It was an impressive performance, but it wasn't flawless. I got to say, Boots' defense on the inside and mid-range is very average. Boots gets touched up. He can be hit, but it's not that he gets hit, Mark. It's that he gets hit clean. He takes some really clean shots. Stanionis landed some nice left hooks early in that fight, and all because when Boots is on the inside, he still keeps that lead arm down. It's just by his waist. Like, it's that classic thing that we see with young fighters obsessed with fighting in that Philly shell. And Boots still has this issue. And I just kept thinking to myself, what if Virgil Ortiz is in there landing that left hook against him? I guarantee you it would be a different effect. I do agree with another thing that you said, though. Boots, to me, looks like the best guy at 147, right? And you look at the guys at 147, you've got the other champions like Mario Barrios, who's WBC, Brian Norman, who is the WBO. Do you think Boots can unify the rest of the titles at welterweight?
I really do, and I'm very confident in saying that. I think he may, if we see Brian Norman and Mario Barrios fight and unify, because it would be a quicker way to be undisputed for him. All he would have to do is fight one of them, the winner of it. Um, but also, Boots Ennis is a top 5 trainer in the USA. That's another major reason why. He's got a hell of a trainer. Boots Ennis is incredible. He's incredible giving instructions. His offensive training, it shows in Boots' offensive output. Because of him, that has a major effect in him winning all of those belts if he can. But who knows if he's going to stay there, because we did see a light heavyweight in there that night. But yeah, because of his trainer, man, top 5.
So I agree with you on that part about Boots looking like a 175 pounder in that ring. He's just been towering over his opponents lately. I don't think he will unify the belts, and it's not because he can't beat the other welterweight champions. I'd make a Boots a favorite over Barrios and Norman. I think the Norman fight though would be more competitive. But let's just say Boots is able to line up those fights, right? Like I think that's impossible. But we're talking about how much longer can he make the weight. He insisted at the post-fight press conference. Boots insisted that he doesn't have trouble making 147, but the eyes tell a different story. The eyes, Chico, the eyes never lie, right? Uh, of course, he's going to say he makes the weight fine. He doesn't want to move up to 154 yet. He doesn't show the interest in it. He had an opportunity to do so with Virgil Ortiz, and for big money in Riyadh season, and he turned it down. So that tells me Boots doesn't want to move to 154 yet for whatever reason. He wants to do more work at welterweight. So of course he's going to say it can make the weight fine. He's not going to tell us, yeah, I struggle to make the weight, but I'm going to continue to do it, right? Why would you do that? He's getting close to 30. He's a big guy. It's clearly not easy for him to make that weight. He looked very big in that ring with Stanionis. And let's not forget, another thing that's going to get in the way of him unifying those titles is there was a guy on the undercard, Giyasov, who solidified his spot as a mandatory for Boots' WBA title. So he's going to have to deal with him before he even steps in the ring with another champion. So I think his time at 147 is limited, and I think he's not going to be there long enough to be able to put the titles together. Hopefully it all works out, though, because we would love to see another undisputed champion. Mark, on the undercard, we had Raymond Ford, who outgunned the Gunna Man and defeats Thomas Marttice by unanimous decision. This was Ford's second fight at junior welterweight. Ford swept all the rounds on all of the judges' scorecards. Did you like what you saw in Raymond Ford's performance?
I loved what I saw in Raymond Ford's performance, simply because he showed he is a force to be reckoned with at 130, and 130 is pretty even, man. There's not a big dominant guy, not even Navarette, who's the biggest name in that division. At 130, he's not the guy he was at 126 and 122. So at this, level, there's a lot of guys even, and Raymond Ford, and I think this is like maybe fight number 2 or number 3 at this weight. He's showing that he can stay here, man. And one thing that I like about him is his speed, dude. And he took Marttice's heart away from him early because of the speed and the output of combinations he was putting together early. It looked like Marttice just lost the fight after maybe the 4th round or the 5th round. You could tell he knew this guy was too fast and too good. And it kind of just, set the tone for the fight. Like, Marttice was a beat, man. He just knew there was nothing he could do to beat this guy. Ford's speed is going to be a problem in this division, man.
Yeah, and Marttice didn't make it too hard for Ford either. He kind of stood in front of Ford most of the time. Also, much like Stanionis, anytime he moved back or he moved forward, it was always in straight lines. Didn't use angles, so it wasn't difficult to attack Marttice or get away from his attack. I think Ford is a nice addition to the 130-pound division. We know what he's made of. We know that he has a lot of heart. He's a guy that comes to fight. He's a well-rounded fighter that can show a little bit of everything. The fight started off really well for Ford, but then it kind of slowed down towards the end. He doesn't have big pop. He doesn't have a lot of power, but he can crack a little bit. He'll be on the smaller side versus most of the top guys at 130. And just look at the types of matchups that you halves that are potential for Ford if he can get in the mix. You've mentioned Emmanuel Navarrete, the WBO champion, O'Shaquie Foster, who holds the WBC, Lamont Roach has the WBA, well, he's the super champ. And he's probably tied up with Tank Davis right now, so we might not see him back at 130, but he's holding on to that belt. The more likely next step for Ford will be the winner of the fight for the vacant IBF title between number 1 ranked Sugar Nunez and the number 3 ranked Masanori Rikishi. That fight will take place on May 28th in Japan. That would be a big fight for Ford, who's currently ranked number 5 in the IBF. But on top of those guys, you have a long list of contenders that are all fighting each other for those belts. There are a lot of interesting matchups awaiting Ford in that weight class. How far do you see him going at 130 pounds?
I see him going quite far, man. I see him equally as good as all of these guys. Lamont Roach is a level ahead of everybody here, and I would put Sugar Nunez there as well. Everybody is expecting Sugar Nunez to beat this Japanese fighter. I know Japanese fighters have really good talent. Sugar Nunez should take care of this guy. I would love that matchup. I see it as a 50-50 fight. Sugar Nunez and Ford. The speed is going to be a problem for Sugar Nunez, but Sugar Nunez has out of this world power, and he will connect. I'd love to see that matchup, but I see him doing good with any of these guys. I don't think he can beat Lamont Roach, but I see him in 50-50 matchups with all of the guys you mentioned.
Yeah, I'm really intrigued by that fight too. Sugar Nunez, for those who don't know, he's 27-1 with 27 KOs. That's a fight most boxers would try to avoid as long as they possibly could, but Ford is asking for that fight. I think he's even money or even close to even money with all of the guys at 130, except maybe Navarrete. I think Navarrete is top of the class at 130. I don't see anybody at the 130-pound division right now that could beat Navarrete. I don't know if you heard, Mark, he's with Memo now. He's going to be on that Memo juice. We could see a different version of Navarrete, maybe a much improved version. Aesthetically, at least, he might look a little better now that he's teaming up with Memo. In another undercard fight, we had Shakram Giyasov. He stopped Franco Ocampo with a straight right to the body. The end came in the 4th round. It was the first time Ocampo, who is from Argentina, had been stopped. But looking at Ocampo's resume, this wasn't really much of a statement, right?
You know what? Ocampo's last 2 fighters were not looking good at all. His last fighter was 5 wins with 36 losses. Fight before that, the guy had 3 wins with 14 losses, and it just getting worse and worse down the line. So Ocampo was not anybody that we can grade his performance against. I'd like to see him with somebody else. Anybody's going to look like a superstar against Ocampo. But what I can say is, man, the power is there.
Yeah, the power looked for real. And with the win, Mark, Giyasov maintains his mandatory status for Boots Ennis' WBA title. In what you saw from Giyasov versus Ocampo, do you think he's a threat to Boots?
Yeah, if he catches him with his power and his left, he did show that. Although it was against Ocampo, he actually shows the ability to know how to set up his punching power, and it's big. So if he does catch him, you said it earlier, he uses that Philly shell and he gets caught with what? Left hands. That's exactly what you said. So yeah, he's dangerous to him.
Yeah, I mean, Boots gets hit with other stuff too. It's not just the left hook, but
Yeah.
I remember Stanionis landing. He's landed a couple of right hands on Boots as well. To me, Mark, the most impressive thing about Giyasov's performance was that he went through with the fight despite the death of his 2-year-old daughter during his training camp. I think that just shows the amount of focus and heart that this man has. In thinking about Giyasov and talking about him, he kind of reminds me a little of Madrimov. And they both have that herky-jerky style, constant head movement. They're bouncing on their toes, looking to counter. The biggest difference to me, though, is that Giyasov comes forward and applies pressure. He doesn't really leap in a lot like Madrimov does. He tries to jump in and throw looping shots. Giyasov keeps his feet set. So when he gets close to his opponent, his feet are set. So his punches have a lot better leverage on them. He has more control over them. Earlier, when I spoke about it being difficult for Boots to unify, this is one of the reasons. He now has to fight Giyasov or risk losing his belt. But Giyasov has already stepped aside for the fight with Stanionis. And now, given what a world title shot means to Giyasov, he promised his daughter, who passed away, that he would become champion. Who knows if Giyasov will give them another opportunity to step aside again. But Boots just seems like a bigger, stronger fighter who can do more in the ring. I see Boots being too much for Giyasov at the moment. Well, that's all for now, folks. Let us know what you thought of the fights. Until then, keep your hands up and your head moving. Mark, show them how to do it. we'll, yeah, there you go. Yeah. Don't like this. What are you doing? You're looking like Boots now, man. Keep it tight. Keep it tight. Well, that's all for now. Let us know what you thought of the fights. Make sure to let us know in the comments. What do you like to see next from Boots Ennis? And do you think Raymond Ford has a shot at becoming a world champ at 130 pounds? We'll see you guys on the next one. This is PYP Boxing. We are